Hello everyone, welcome back to Appleard's high-speed network adventures. Today I'm taking a look at this guy. This is the Sonnet Technologies 10 gigabit SFP Plus adapter over Thunderbolt for laptops. So as many of you know, I like going fast, really fast, and for me that means 10 gig through a lot of my network backbones and stuff. So I got 10 gig to my Proxmox system here, Proxmox system there, backup server, that kind of stuff. I've also got 10 gig to my desktop, and it's not that hard to buy a 10 gigabit Ethernet card in a PCI form factor for desktop PCs. But it is hard to get one for laptops. So my MacBook Air here has been stuck with plain old gigabit or 2.5 gig for a while, but not anymore. So I'm taking a look at this guy today. If 10 gig networking for your laptop interests you, then come along on this adventure. Before I get started, I have launched a new merch store. Link down below for my Ko-fi for that. You may buy fine shirts such as this one. Cloud-free is the new luxury. Friendly reminder to log out for self-care. So if you like to rep your cloud-freeness, shirt link down below. Also, Sonnet sent me this to make a review. So no money changed hands. They won't see the review until you do. I reached out to many of the companies that offer this product since I want to start reviewing them on my channel here. So hopefully I can round up one from each brand. That's my goal. But Sonnet's the one for this video, so let's get into it. So let's take a look at the box here. So it doesn't fit on camera super well. Sonnet Tech Thunderbolt 10 gig Ethernet adapter with short-range SFP Plus transceiver. Oh. It's got tape. Instructions, don't need those. And it looks like it is in the sort of dongle form factor. This might be the biggest dongle I've ever used. Get it unwrapped though. So here's the unit itself. We got a Type-C cable. It is built in, so we're not removing it here. Nothing on the bottom, nothing on the top. Passively cooled with its heatsink. On the far end, it came with a SFP module, so I guess I'll have to pull this out and see what the module is that it came with. Okay, Sonnet 10G base SR multi-mode 850 nanometer. Okay. Now, of course, this is just a SFP slot, so I can test a couple different things in here. So let's get this guy hooked up. So aside from this being the biggest dongle I have ever used with a Mac, not that Mac people aren't used to dongles, I got plenty of them, this is a big one. First off, I'm going to test this guy under Linux. So I want to see what the PCIe topology is like, what adapter they're using, stuff like that. And that's easier to do on Linux, so let's jump over there. So taking a look here at LSPCI, it looks like we're using the Aquantia Corp Aquantia AQC100, so that is the Marvell Aquantia NIC. And if we take a detailed look at it, we can see that it's running at PCIe Gen 3 by 4 lanes, which is exactly what the chip supports. And we're using the Atlantic driver. So of course, Thunderbolt is tunneling PCI Express transactions over USB 4. So the architecture device like this is going to have a Thunderbolt slave chip that speaks Thunderbolt and then untunnels that PCI Express. So on the circuit board here, there will be normal circuit board PCI Express. That will be connected to a normal PCI Express network chip. In this case, the Marvell Aquantia AQC100. That's an excellent chip. It does SFP Plus, of course. Marvell also makes one that has a built-in 10 gig, 5 gig, 2.5 gig PHY. And I believe Sonnet also makes one with native RJ45. So if you want that option, that probably uses less heat than adding a built-in transceiver. Now, other chips that might be on the market, and I'm really interested in seeing what other companies are doing, if they're using like an Intel 500 or 700 series chipset, or maybe even a Mellanox ConnectX chipset. So that's what I've done under Linux. Now I'm going to move over to my Mac for performance testing. So this is a multi-mode transceiver, and I don't really use multi-mode, so I'm going to pull that out. Just taking a look at my fiber box here, I got a wide variety of transceivers. Today I'm going to test with this guy. This is a 10G LRM, so it's a 1310 nanometer single mode. I also want to test 10 gig Ethernet, so I got this guy as well. Just a super basic one. This one doesn't even do multi-gig, just 10 gig, but that's fine. I guess I'll take this transceiver that came with it and add it to my collection. So first up, I guess we'll do fiber. So I'll take the dust caps off both sides. Get out of there. And we'll plug this guy in. I think it goes this way. Yep, that's upside down. And there we go. Do we have lights? There we go. Got link. Nice. So over here in network it shows up as slot 2. I don't know why, but everything else is working fine. And now EN20's got some IP addresses. So let's start off with an iPerf test. Very stable there, 9.2, staying over 9 the whole time. That's what I like to see. 9.18 gigabits. And how about ByteDeer? Close. Slightly more variation, but that's to be expected with ByteDeer. So of course it's working exactly as expected over 10 gig fiber. So I'm hooked up with this fiber back to my switch in the closet. My MikroTik CRS312. Love that switch, by the way. That switch can do fiber and copper across 12 ports. That's hooked up to this system here, which is my Proxmox system. Next I'm going to test 10 gig copper because this is a much hotter test. So the analog line drivers for 10 gig copper use quite a bit more power than the lasers for 10 gig fiber. So if you have the option of going 10 gig fiber instead of copper, you probably want to do that. But I expect a lot of you guys are going to be doing 10 gig copper. Now Sonnet, I believe, makes a model with native copper built in, so you probably just want to get that one instead of the fiber version. But again, I like fiber, so I got the fiber version. I'm going to see how it performs with the RJ45 module. So macOS shows up now as 10G base T, neat. EN20 is of course up. So hammering it with full bidirectional throughput for 5 minutes. This case is not even really warm to the touch. It's a little bit above room temperature. I mean, I can feel that it's not room temperature, but it's not hot at all. So it is a rather large case. I wouldn't want to carry it around as a dongle, but I guess this is what we're limited to now with 10 gig. Now the transceiver is rather warm. Let me pull the transceiver out and see how that's doing. It's very uncomfortable to hold, but I can hold on to it. So this is quite hot. But again, that's what happens with these transceivers. So if you don't want it to get hot, buy the one with native RJ45. But it is working. I guess I'll switch back to fiber because I like fiber better. So yeah, not hot at all. The Marvell chipset is not a very hot chipset. It's relatively modern, fairly recent process node, that kind of stuff. So like the old Intel 500 series or Mellanox ConnectX-3 10 gig gen, those were rather hot. The 25 gig versions, the 700 series and the ConnectX-4, those were very hot. This is passively cooled and it's not that hot. So Marvell Action chipset, great for thermal efficiency there, even if you're stuck using one of these. I do slightly worry that you could overheat one of these because this isn't cooled, but it does have good heat sinking, so that seems to be fine. And again, you could just buy the one that has native RJ45. So next up, I'm testing a real-world performance test with Atto Disk Benchmark. So I've mounted a Samba share over 10 gig fiber to my NAS over here, but it's not going to NVMe, it's going to a RAM disk. So I've got a 1 gig RAM disk set up, so NVMe performance shouldn't be our bottleneck here. We can see what our real file throughput is over Samba. Now I've heard rumors that macOS Samba client is not the best. I have not found that to be true. I've had very good luck with Samba on macOS in the past. So I'm expecting to get roughly 10 gigs throughput here, which would be what, 1100 megabytes per second. It's pretty fast. So going to a RAM disk, we'll see what happens. So just crossed 1000 megabytes with a 12 meg transfer size. We're doing single queue depth, single stream, so this is a sort of worst case. So final test results, looks like our highest bandwidth here was about 1100, 1126, 1128 megabytes per second. Now that is, again, with a queue depth of 1, so this is sort of a worst case, but it's able to handle it just fine. So that's pretty much all the testing I got for today. It's a network card. I don't know what else to say about that. It handles full bandwidth, handled my 10 gig copper adapters just fine. It didn't appear to be vendor locked because I'm using fs.com transceivers here. It came with an 850 nanometer transceiver, which I didn't use because I use single mode instead of multi-mode, but yep, it does not get warm. It uses an Aquantia AQC100 chipset. So that's one of the things I'm really interested in as I deep dive into these guys. I want to understand what chipsets they're using. If any of you guys have vendor preferences, you like Mellanox, you like Intel, you like Aquantia, maybe you can factor that into your buying decision. Now, stability with the MacBook Air has been fantastic. One of the reasons I'm hesitant to do too many tests on my Linux system is because the Thunderbolt on my mini PCs has not been as reliable as on my MacBook. Apple does a great job with their implementation. I don't want to blame one of these guys for a poor implementation on the host side. So, MacBook testing. I also expect if you guys are buying this sort of thing, you're probably going to be testing it with a high-end laptop. You're probably not going to be pairing it with a mini PC, because then you just buy a mini PC that had 10 gig already. So that's what I got for this. This is a small dongle. The only concern I have is that USB-C connectors do break over time, especially the really high bandwidth ones. This guy is integrated in the case, so you won't be able to replace it. I guess I could tear it apart and see if you can replace it. You guys want to stay tuned for that? So iFixit toolkit, of course. I'm going to need a Phillips, and then we'll try like a number 0. So based on the construction, they've got an extrusion here, which appears to go all the way around. Then they've got the front and back screwed in. So I'm going to unscrew the back. Oh, that is a Torx. That's not a Phillips. Oh, excuse me. Yep, looks like we got a T9. Nope, T10. Okay, so I'm taking the back off. These are tight. Not too bad. Get out of there. Plate comes off. It is screwed down in there, and it is screwed down through this pad. So if I pull the pad out, they got a screw in there holding it to the top board. Interesting design. Well, I guess we go further. So I got screw holes in all 6. Those are Phillips, and pretty big Phillips at that. So we'll use the number 2 Phillips driver. Whoop. Okay, I got 3 screws out of there. 4, 5 screws. Which screw is left? It's still stuck a little bit. Get out of there. So this is, of course, the SFP socket where your transceiver goes. Oh, that screw is a different length than the other end cap. Gotta keep an eye on that. There we go. Now we can get out. So these guys here are not for grounding, they're for heat transfer. So that's going to slide into a slot here where it gets screwed. And they want to make good thermal contact with the aluminum extrusion. They've also got a little rib in the extrusion here to make contact with these 2 pads. So that is probably on the Thunderbolt chipset and the Aquantia chipset. So the USB connector is removable though, despite being inside the product. So I guess it's good to know that if you manage to break the cable, you can possibly replace it. Actually, you can probably replace without even taking the screws out. But yeah, I wonder why they're making this cable integrated, sort of like a dongle. So I got this guy put back together. I do think it's a bit odd that the USB cable is inside, but it's just a USB connector. But I guess that's a thing. So if you do have to replace the cable if you break it, it is possible. I just checked, as of the filming of this video, of course prices go up and down, this exact unit with the SFP and the 850nm transceiver is currently selling for $299, so $300. The RJ45 version, 10G base T, is $100 less at $199, $200. So I think a lot of you are probably going to be buying that guy, not because you don't like fiber like me, but because if you're getting into this thing, it is a bit tricky to run fiber to all your stuff. So I understand where they're coming from on that. If you're like a professional, you want high-speed I/O for your MacBook, Apple Silicon stuff, then yeah, 10 GB might make sense. If you're planning on using fiber, I like SFP Plus for fiber stuff. That is, again, just me. I know not everyone follows the same belief, but yeah, so this product worked pretty well. It does not get too hot. Passive cooling works fine. The 2 major chips on the inside are both heat sunk to the aluminum case, which is nice to see. I had no stability issues with this. I think I mentioned it earlier in the video with the M1 MacBook Air, which is my test system. So overall, I am happy with this. Now I'm trying to review more of these guys in the market to see what chipsets they're using. Like these guys in the Aquantia AQC100. So I reviewed another one at some point in the past that was using a Mellanox Connect X4 chipset, which is a very, very different type of build than a modern Marvell Aquantia chipset. So I know some of you guys have chipset preferences, mostly I think driven by drivers being not good on certain operating systems. I have found the drivers for this guy, and for all of the ones I've tested, to be really excellent under macOS and under Linux. Windows, of course, you're going to have to install stuff, and it's going to be a nightmare of like vibe-coded shit, but that's how life is when you buy into Windows. So sorry about that. If you want to buy the t-shirt, by the way, cloud-free is the new luxury. Merch store link down below for that. I also accept donations. I'd rather you buy a shirt, but if you don't want to spend the money, I accept donations as well, or just keep it, it's fine. If you want to follow me on Mastodon, link down below for that as well. I have a Discord server. You can come chat with me. Really like you guys chatting with me down there. And I guess that's all I have for today. So I guess I'll see you guys on the next adventure.